What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Pro V Pro for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. As you can tell, I am solo today. We had it was just tough to schedule with Justin this week. Got so much going on with his kids and sports and that nature, and then also playing golf today. So you've got just me. I'm going to show the model here. We're going to talk Rocket Mortgage Classic. We're going to go through the best bets. We're going to go through one and done. Then we'll flip over to DFS, talk some DraftKings. Very unique pricing this week. Number of ways to game that. Lots of course fit sensitivity this week. One of the more unique, not so much fun course fit models. We'll talk about why, but potentially an edge with the course fit model as there usually is. And then we will close with some underdog plays. Hopefully we'll be able to build at least one 3-pick play over an underdog and call it a day. And next week for the John Deere, we will cover the John Deere, of course. We will also turn that into an Open Championship preview show. Hopefully have some future bets for you guys then. But for now, let's jump right in to outrights. And you can see where we differ from the market. We have Akshay Bhatia as the most likely player to win, 6.7% chance to win. That makes him 1380 as a fair price. He's available 20-1 most places. So I don't know that I'm making that bet. As you guys know, I like going to the higher guys. We've got guys with some really, really favorable odds this week. But there's no question there's an edge on Akshay Bhatia in the outright market. If I do place that, I will not go to an each way. I will just take the pure outright there. There is value on the each way as well. It's not that there isn't. It's just if I'm going to play something for smaller odds than I usually do, I want just the pure 20-1 payout. I don't want to cut that payout at all. So that's where I'd go to start at the top of the board. There are some other really interesting ones. In fact, Eric Van Rooyen, not somebody that you would necessarily expect to be near the top in win odds. We've got his fair price at 31.80. He's available at 70-1 in some places. Now, do I think that Eric Van Rooyen actually has a 3.1% chance to win? Honestly, no. Because the number one criticism of this bet is going to be, Van Rooyen can't get it done in pressure situations. And honestly, I somewhat agree. I don't think that he's going to close the deal as often as most. But remember what we talk about a lot. We can't say which guys don't have that skill of knowing how to win, because for most guys, they can't win until they do. Now, Van Rooyen has won, but we've also seen him kind of fail under the gun a number of times. Where I still really love this bet is, again, 31.80. The price that we can get on him is 70-1. So there's a heck of a lot of room between 31.80 and 7,000 in terms of what his fair odds should actually be. Maybe he's not 31.80. Maybe the fact that he hasn't gotten it done means he should be more like 40 or 50, something like that. That still leaves a lot of value. So Eric Van Rooyen, probably my favorite bet of the week, especially if you can get that as an each way. He's available 70-1 on Bet365 with an each way, 66 at the moment with an each way on Bet Rivers. So there you're getting, protection over the fact that maybe you think he can't get it done. Maybe you think if he's leading with 3 holes to go, he's going to find a way to finish third or find a way to finish second, in which case he still catches the each way. So if you can make it an each way bet, it makes it even better. But even if it's just a pure outright, 70-1 is too high. I do really like that. Couple other guys I find interesting. In fact, I should even talk course fit for a moment. This course fit model is all about putting. It's the only statistic this week that is more predictive than usual. And it's, let's see, we have a 43% decrease. Do I have the wrong one here? Yes, I do. There's a 43, I had to adjust something in my spreadsheet. The only stat with a better than usual predictive value is putting, and it's about 50% more predictive than usual. Everything else is slightly negative. There's nothing hugely negative, but this is a week where putting is the premier thing that we need to be looking at. And so there are some guys like, actually, I think part of the reason, by the way, why Van Rooyen historically has struggled with the lead is that his putter has always been a bit of a weak point for him. He's turned it into a strength. And I think that's one of the reasons why this week we do have an edge, is because So often when you get into fields like this, people have preconceived notions of who players are, and they don't necessarily confirm whether those preconceived notions are still correct or not with data. People probably still view Van Rooyen as a poor putter, or at least somebody who tends to struggle. Man, his putting has been fantastic. There are other guys in this field who really, really stand out with the putter, like Taylor Pendrith. You can see he's right below Van Rooyen in win odds. The problem with Pendrith, though, is he's priced 25, 28 to 1, something like that. So I don't think I'll have an outright on him, but somebody I'm very interested in this week. In DFS, for example, we'll get to that momentarily. Going down the board, I do feel like this is a pretty good week for long shots. The problem is I just don't see that many who really stand out. I wonder what Wallace is. Let's check Wallace at 61 and Gim at 78. Let's see where they're at in the prop shop. Wallace 65, so pretty good price there. And Doug Gim 90 to 1. So a little bit of value on Doug Gim, maybe not enough for me to fire that one. Jake Knapp, he's a really interesting course fit. Super, super volatile. So he's available at 110 to 1. I think we have a Knapp at, let's see, what was that? I think Knapp is 1,000. So we have his fair odds at 94.80. So yeah, we do show, again, a little bit of value on Jake Knapp's outright. Maybe not enough for me to actually place it. So maybe the only two, and in fact, if we only have two, it makes it a lot easier to handle that Akshay Bhatia number at just 20 to 1. Is 20 to 1 the best available? I should confirm that as well. Yeah, 20 to 1 on Bet365, on BetMGM, on FanDuel, and on DraftKings. So you can get that 20 to 1 number on Bhatia basically anywhere. And then if we're only doing two bets, only two outrights, it makes it a lot easier to get that 20 to 1. Other one would be Erik van Rooyen at 70 to 1 with an each way. So that's probably going to be my outright plan for the week, in which case we can now talk a little bit of one and done. In fact, you know what? For one and done, let's go to PGA ownership for a little bit. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because now we can also look at ownership projections for DFS. So we have it sorted by salary here, and then we're going to use the projected ownership. We can just use MME. It doesn't really matter. Whenever you have the most expensive player as the highest owned player, you can pretty much guarantee that unless everybody has already used him in one and done, he's going to be the most popular one and done pick. So I'd be very shocked if Tom Kim and Akshay Bhatia are not 1 and 2 in one and done popularity. I do think I want to go a little bit off the board there, and we can do so. Taylor Pendrith, it looks like he will slip through the cracks a little bit in one and done. We can also go down, and now you see maybe Keith Mitchell is a great option for those who still have him. We've got him with a 3.6% chance to win. In fact, that's a good point. We need to look at Keith. Keith's available at 40 to 1. So actually, 40 to 1 is available at Bet365. If you have Bet365, that is a fantastic bet with the each way. So there's another one. So maybe it's a 3-player card this week. Also a 13.9% chance to finish in the top 5. So that, again, that 40 to 1 each way would be really, really strong. That would be 10 to 1 for a top 5 finish. And we've got them at 13.9% instead of the 9 to 1 that you would need to make that a fair price. So like Keith a lot as well there. All right, so we got 3 outrights instead of 2. We got 3. But then for one and done, he makes a lot of sense. It looks like he's not going to be as high owned. Plus, you're coming down the board, so he might be, like a 4% one and done pick, whereas these two, Tom Kim, Akshay Bhatia, they could be 15, 20%, something along those lines. So I definitely want to go down. I think Pendrith might be 7, 8, 9%, something like that. Again, Mitchell's down the board. And then Erik van Rooyen might be like a 1, 2% play in one and done. So I think Van Rooyen might be my lean personally. But at this part of the year, remember, it really depends on how you are doing in your one and done contest. If you're doing quite well, man, get chalky. Use Akshay Bhatia. Use the guy who we have with the highest win equity. If you're doing pretty well, which is where Justin and I are, We're just outside the top 1,000, so still have a very good chance of cashing. Probably not going to win the whole damn thing, but good chance of cashing. We might go to Taylor Pendrith and really lean into the fact that we just think he's a really good player. Excellent putter. So a great course fit. And yeah, so I like that strategy for one and done. I don't think you need to go more off the board than Erik van Rooyen, though you can. It's not like there aren't other options that you could go to. In fact, one thing we can do is you could just come here. You could sort by win odds, and then you could look at ownership, right? So again, Keith Mitchell up there, he looks like a fantastic play. Van Rooyen will be really solid. Anybody in this range. Now we're under $9,000 and we're under 20% owned outside of Maverick McNeely. So any of these guys are going to be really low owned. Maybe you go to Mav, or maybe you go to Robert McIntyre. We've seen his ceiling. He's playing well. So he could be a solid one and done option as well. Lots of ways that you can go. But let's talk DraftKings now, because the very interesting thing about this slate is that the top end talent has been priced up to where we would usually see some of the best players. We've got at 11,000. We got 10,700. 4 guys over $10,000, and it's 4 guys who have never been over $10,000 before this year. So it's not that they haven't priced guys up, but notice how quickly the prices fall off. After 4 guys over 10,000, we only have 5 in the 9,000s, which means we're very quickly in the 8s, and then we're very quickly. Look, we're now already below the average price of a player per lineup. So very quickly into the 7s, and then we get a hell of a lot of guys in the 7s, 6s, and we have a $5,000 range. So what happens? Look at all of the projected ownership that we have near the top. Every single guy is chalky, and consequently, every single guy has negative GPP scores. What does that mean for us? Well, for one thing, it doesn't mean that we have to completely avoid this range. It just means, okay, everybody is a little bit overowned in this range because they're not actually as expensive. They're not as price prohibitive as their price tags would initially lead you to believe, because everybody else is so cheap. So, 10,500 for Minwoo Lee this week is more like 9,700, 9,800 in a typical pricing structure. So everybody's a little bit cheaper than usual, which means what they need for a ceiling outcome is a little bit less than what we have. So when you see like negative 6.2 GPP for Taylor Pendrith, it's still pretty easy to say, okay, you know what? Negative 6 is better than negative 111.6 for Akshay Bhatia. So we can still use the GPP scores to guide us on how to play this top end. Cam Young, Minwoo Lee, Alex Noren, Taylor Pendrith, all solid options. Tom Kim, Akshay Bhatia, probably too expensive or too popular for my taste. And part of that too is look at the expected strokes gain projections. Everybody's bunched together, 1.15, 1.15, 1.02, 1.22. So if you go to 0.82 for Pendrith, or 1.15 for Minwoo Lee, or 1.02 for Alex Noren, you're really not losing much to the 1.22 and 1.15 of Akshay Bhatia and Tom Kim. Makes it very easy to make those pivots when you're suddenly using a guy who's half as owned, or even less than that. So that's the way I'll be viewing the top of the board. It also means, by the way, that there are so many guys in the 7, 6, and 5 range that we're not really seeing any major chalk in those ranges. Let's now sort by GPP score. So what you'll see is there are a ton of guys at the top of the GPP scores in those really cheap ranges. Same idea, right? Just as the most expensive players aren't really overowned, even though they have negative GPP scores, some of these really cheap guys aren't really that underowned, even though they have solid GPP scores. It's just the pricing structure kind of changing anything. So what we want to do is we want to find the guys who stand out in the GPP scores at a higher price tag. So Keith Mitchell looks like the best play on the slate to me. Solid putter, just really solid all-around game. A couple other guys that stand out. Erik van Rooyen, once again, mentioned him already. Ben Griffin stands out a little bit too. This is kind of Ben Griffin's course, right? Like, he's certainly not a ball striker, certainly not great off the tee. Those don't matter as much as usual. He's a great putter. Putting is what matters most this week. So Ben Griffin, a solid option. So if you wanted to start Keith Mitchell, Ben Griffin, Eric Van Rooyen, guess what? You're probably going to have 3 of the guys who end up in my lineup. I can't say that for certain yet, but seems very likely to me that I'll have those 3. Part of that will be, what happens when I run the next ownership update? If Ben Griffin suddenly goes from 7.2% expected ownership in single entry contests to 15%, okay, I'm probably not using Ben Griffin. But if ownership stays where it's at currently, I think that will be the 3 guys who start my lineup. Maybe at the top, I would then go, Taylor Pendrith and then see who's left. Not entirely sure. But the thing to remember this week as you're building lineups is that the price of each player that's listed, it's almost like it's not really his price because of this pricing structure. So just keep that in mind. What you're really trying to do then is don't view the GPP scores in a vacuum. So like, if you want to say, okay, who's the best play between Bud Cauley and Keith Mitchell, don't evaluate that on the GPP score. Look at which of the 2 separates more from the rest of the guys in their price range in GPP score. If we look at it that way, scrolling down, it's negative number, and then suddenly Robert McIntyre plus 3.5, Keith Mitchell plus 6.7, negative number. So Mitchell, phenomenal play. McIntyre, solid play as well. That's the way I'll be doing it. Whereas if you go all the way down, like let's just click here, everybody's got a positive GPP score, right? So that 5.1 for Matthew Neesmith, for example, is it good? Is it better than Zach Johnson, Kevin Doherty, Zach Blair? Yeah. But does it really stand out the way that Keith Mitchell stands out? No. So that's the way we want to use the GPP scores this week. And of course, we can also just look at how they fare in the win odds, top 5 odds. So same idea, right? Neesmith is 4.8% better than the 1 to 3 to 2.5% and guys around him. Absolutely. Is it the same kind of difference that we see between Keith Mitchell here at 13.9% relative to 4.5, 8.5, 9.1? Again, no. Mitchell is the one who stands out more. That's the way we want to use the GPP scores for DraftKings. So pretty straightforward there. Makes it very easy. As always, the GPP scores, regardless of the slate context, super, super helpful. See, anything else I want to touch on before we get out of here? I don't believe so. Again, of course, Underdog. We got to do Underdog. So let's go over there. Let's see if we can build a 3-pick play and then call it a show. And I will blow this up a little bit for you guys so it's easier to see. Let's go to PGA. And in fact, let me go grab the stats. Shout out to Josh Culp, as always, for compiling these stats for us. We've got 4.17 birdies or better per round, 2.31 bogeys or worse per round. So 4.17, 2.31. Let's keep those in mind. 9.1 fairways and 13.0 greens in regulation per round. In fact, you know what? Let me jot down those numbers. Okay. All right. So with that, let's go over here and let's look at birdies. So we're going to start birdies. Again, the average number for the entire field, 4.17. So we're looking at, most of these guys are going to be better players than the average player in the field. So we should expect to see higher numbers. Tom Kim, 5.5. Cam Young, 5.5. I think those are solid. But we might be able to do better. And in fact, so one way to kind of evaluate this is look at talent, right? So Scottie Scheffler has consistently had a number for birdies or better and a number for bogeys or worse that's either higher for birdies or lower for bogeys than everybody else in the field. Underdog has done a really good job of identifying the fact that he's just that much better than everybody else. In this field, Tom Kim, Cam Young, they probably are that much better at least making birdies than everybody else in the field. So the fact that we have a number of other guys, Chris Kirk, Alex Noren, Robert McIntyre, Aaron Rai, also at 5.5 is a good indication that 5.5 is solid for Cam Young and Tom Kim. I'm going to put both of them in for now. And if you're wondering, remember, Tom Kim was at the very top in expected strokes gained. Cam Young was a little bit behind them, but Cam Young probably the best scorer on tour. In other words, he makes more birdies for his overall strokes gained than maybe anybody else on tour. So I'm going to put those two guys in for now. We might end up taking them out. As you guys know, we've talked about payouts a lot. When you put both of these together, two higher than plays, it's going to view that as correlated plays and hurt the payout a little bit. We can counteract that with a higher than on bogeys, which we might be able to do. We'll check that out next. But I want to look through the rest of the birdies. Maybe we can find someone at 4.5 who's not deserving of being at 4.5. If everybody else is just at 5, then we're going to stay. So yeah, everybody else either at 5 or 5.5, which means Tom Kim and Cam Young are the guys that I'm going to go to here. I'm going to mute this for a second. I'm at my grandparents' house, so the landline, it's been an enemy of ours. It's back. Okay. So now we're searching for bogeys. And if you see, so if I go higher on Adam Svensson, instead of going to the standard 6x, we get 6.43x. So just one higher than bogey play will now give us an even better payout. It views this as inverse correlation. But remember, what did I say was the average bogey number? 2.31. So 1.5 is a pretty solid number, especially if you can find somebody who everybody in this list, same as on the birdies, everybody on this list is going to be a better player than average. So we should expect them to make fewer than the average number of bogeys. But we can find guys who are better than average because of the way they make birdies, not the way they avoid bogeys. So we can still get some solid numbers. Fowler's intriguing. Fowler has been a bogey machine this year. Yes, this is a course that he won it last year. Yes, he's coming off one of his better weeks on tour. Still a bit of a bogey machine. So there are definitely guys that I'm intrigued by. I would say I don't want Minwoo Lee. I don't want Akshay Bhatia. I don't want Jaeger. I don't want Mitchell. Don't want Thompson. Matt McNeely's in play. I don't want Rye. Hostler very much in play. Hostler might be the best way to go. In fact, let's bring this up. Let's look at Beau Hostler for a second. How has he been of late? Coming off a missed cut at the U.S. Open where he drove the ball extremely poorly. He's a great scrambler and a great putter that does typically bode against bogey makers, but sometimes if your ball striking is just that bad, you're gonna be stuck making some bogeys. Let's see how his numbers look. So the easiest way to do this, I like just searching guys. You can just Google like Beau Hostler, PGA. Then you go to stats, and then I just Command F, search for bogey avoidance. So Hostler 32nd in bogey avoidance this year, 69th in birdie or better percentage. What I'm looking for, the guys bad in bogey avoidance, good in birdie or better percentage, which also, by the way, you can do the exact same thing for those birdie or better picks. So for example, I was talking about how good of a scorer Cam Young is. So let's look at those exact numbers here. And you know what? Here, I'll even share this for you guys so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Just go to Cam Young, hit this stats button, and now you can just search for bogey avoidance. There it is. So 143rd in bogey avoidance and 21st in birdie or better percentage. Yeah, that's that's why I really like his birdie numbers. It also shows why he hasn't won yet, even though he's super, super talented. He just can't stop making the silly, sloppy mistakes. As soon as he corrects that, that's when he's going to win. Hey, it could be this week. Who knows? But regardless, I love his chances to make a lot of birdies here. And remember, this is also very dependent on the courses you're playing. He's mostly played tougher golf courses, elevated events. And so his birdie rate, the fact that he's 21st, like that's significantly better than some of the guys in this field who might be, 15th, but they're 15th playing easy course after easy course after easy course. So the discrepancy between the two really tells the story. 21st versus 143rd. We want that sort of thing. So let's look at Ricky Fowler, because I think he might be a really good option here if I recall correctly. $159th in bogey avoidance. And 154th in birdie or better percentage. So he's made a lot of bogeys, but just because he hasn't been very good at all. He did play a lot better last week, finishing 20th at the Travelers. He did not drive the ball well, though. He just made a lot more putts. His around the green wasn't very good. His around the green was terrible at the U.S. Open. drove the ball terribly at the Memorial, putted terribly at the Memorial, hit his irons terribly at the Memorial. Man, he seems like a really, really solid one. I kind of wish that Fowler had. You can see some of these guys are 1.1x. And honestly, Cam Young wouldn't be a bad idea to go 1.1x based on that bogey avoidance number. But I really like his birdies, so I don't want to do that on him. Let's see who else we got. Again, I wish Fowler was 1.1x. If he was 1.1x, that would be a pretty easy one. I don't want Pendrith. Hubbard, Rogers, Griffin. Let's see where those guys rank here. So PGA. '66th in bogey avoidance, 33rd in better birdie or better percentage. So now we're getting somewhere a little bit. So this becomes an interesting question, right? So Hubbard, 66th, Fowler like 145th or something. Would I really prefer Hubbard just for the discrepancy? I don't know. It's a tough one. It's definitely a tough one. So let's see if either of these other guys, oh my goodness, stand out as better plays. Maybe one of these guys will just be like the automatic, oh, that's very clearly the right way to go. Hopefully we can find one of those. It's 80th and 88th for Patrick Rogers, so that's not the ideal answer. Ben Griffin. Again, this is a very solid course for Ben Griffin, but his ball striking is so bad that he still might make a handful of bogeys, and it's just that he can make more birdies this week because of his putting, something like that. So let's see where he's at. Oh, wow, 12th in bogey avoidance. So he's just such a damn good scrambler all the time that he doesn't make a ton of bogeys. So Ben Griffin definitely not the way to go. In fact, you could even go with a lower than on Ben Griffin. I don't want to do that with the birdie picks because now we'd get 4.67 instead of 6x. Certainly not what we want to do, but that in and of itself probably a solid play as well. You can maybe you do one play that's higher on 2 birdie picks, lower or higher on 1 bogey, and then you could do 2 that are higher on 2 or lower on 2 bogey picks. Sorry for the confusion. Lower on 2 bogey picks and lower on 1 birdie pick for one of those guys at 5.5 who's not as good. So like that could be, let's see, that could be lower on Ben Griffin. It could be lower on Min-Woo Lee. Just like Min-Woo Lee drives the ball so well. He's such a good scrambler. It's going to be hard for him to make a lot of bogeys here, I think. And then you could go, let's get rid of, I hate how small this gets. Let me zoom out just for my own purposes here. I'm going to get rid of Tom Kim and Cam Young, and now I'll bring this larger again for you guys to see. And then we go to birdies. I might like this more, honestly, than trying to find somebody who's going to make that many bogeys. So amongst the 5.5 guys, McIntyre, Alex Noren, Chris Kirk, Aaron Rai, Steven Yeager, I think Batia has a good chance of making 6 birdies. Pendrith, man, one of these guys has to be our answer. Remember Hostler? Oh wait, he's 5.0, not 5.5. Let's see, I wonder where McIntyre is. Let's look at. I know Chris Kirk is a birdie machine. McIntyre and Alex Noren might be our best bets here. So let me take a look. Oh, I haven't even been showing you this. This is rookie mistake on my part. Sorry, guys. So what I'm now looking at here, as you can see, Ben Griffin lower than 1.5 bogeys, Min-Woo Lee lower than 1.5 bogeys, and now I'm trying to find one of these 5.5 birdie guys to also go lower on so that we get the exact same 6.43x payout. I suddenly like this play a little bit more than the higher on birdies, higher on bogeys, just because I didn't really like anyone's higher than 1.5 bogeys the way that I think I'm going to be able to like one of these lower than 5.5 birdie numbers. Because remember, we talked about the same reason why we like Tom Kim and Cam Young so much at 5.5, because they are just better. Did I click something I shouldn't have? No. These guys are better at making birdies than the other guys at 5.5. So Zalatoris, Chris Kirk, Robert McIntyre, Alex Noren, Aaron Rai. Got a lot of guys here that we can choose from. Steven Yeager. So let's look through. I know I'm not going to want Batia. If Fowler wasn't 1.1x and 0.9x to go lower, I think he'd be the answer. But because he is that 0.9x to go lower, guys I'm going to look at, I don't think I want Pendrith because he's got distance and putting. That's a recipe for birdies. I think where I want to start is Jaeger, and then I'll look at Rye, Noren, McIntyre. And I might even want to start with Noren because I feel like he might be a bogey avoidance superstar. So let's search Alex Noren to begin here. Share this tab again with you guys. We can go through this exact same process. You can see exactly what I'm doing so that you can build your own underdog plays the same way that I am. So I'm just going to search bogey avoidance here. Third in bogey avoidance, 95th in birdie or better percentage. How about that? Talk about knowing your players, right? So he seems like a really strong candidate to get fewer than 5.5 birdies. I'm going to look around at just a few other guys. I want to look at McIntyre. I also want to look at Zalatoris because Zalatoris, there's a chance that Zalatoris is a really good option just because his putter is not very good. The ball striking hasn't been great this season. Historically, he is a guy who can be pretty explosive, but let's start there. So again, what we want to see is that discrepancy. We want to see better bogey avoidance than birdie or better rates, but we also want to see just really bad birdie or better rates. 97th in bogey avoidance, 147th in birdie or better percentage for Zalatoris. Now, that includes a lot of the year that he just wasn't playing well. Obviously playing better of late. Just finished. I mean, it's not like he played great at the Travelers. 42nd, missed the cut at the U.S. Open. 41st at the Memorial. 43rd at the PGA Championship. 60th at the Wells Fargo. The approach play has not been good. In fact, he's lost strokes with his irons in 3 straight events. Putter has not been there. You know what? I think we found our guy. I think Zalatoris is the one that I want to bet against here. We're going to do that. It feels bad, right? Like Zalatoris, such a good player, such a great guy, such an easy guy to root for. But I think we're going to go lower on Zalatoris. In fact, I'm probably going to do this twice. I'm going to go once with Zalatoris, lower on bogeys, or lower on birdies, and then I'm going to do the same thing. Oh, crap, I'm in Florida. I forgot about that. So you guys can do this. I can't do it, but so once with Zalatoris and then once with Alex Noren is the way that I would do this. So there you go. We've got 2 3-pick plays now. With that, I wasn't sharing that, was I? Rookie mistake again. Okay, back to the right tab. So here it is. Ben Griffin, lower than 1.5 bogeys or worse. Minwoo Lee, lower 1.5 bogeys or worse. Will Zalatoris, lower 5.5 birdies or better. Now we get that 6.43x payout instead of the standard 6 because we are inversely correlating. In a way, I don't really view it as inverse correlation because we're going here not because we think these numbers are off, but because this is just the skill set of these players. So I don't view it as inverse correlation. Underdog does. That's why we get that really nice payout. And then I would run the exact same thing with Alex Noren, lower than 5.5 birdies instead of Zalatoris. So there you go. 2 3-pick plays. With that, we will see you next week. Justin will be back. We will talk John Deere and Open Championship futures. So see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.